Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and we are going to be talking today about men in grief, brotherhood, and connection. And this is such an important topic because we are here in New York City at the studio, and we are, in a few weeks, going to have our 20th anniversary of September 11th. And we have people here that are going to speak to us today about it and what it means to them and how they've been impacted by September 11th. We are talking today with Carrie Pike and Dave Turner. Carrie's here with me in the studio, so I'll introduce her first. Carrie lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. In the fall of 2001, she joined together with the Caring Connection to make a Carrie Bear for each of the fallen firefighter, police officer, and Port Authority families, totaling 422 bears. She personally delivered the bears to the families of Engine 54 in December of 2001. She is the author of Heroes of 9/11, A Brotherhood and Connections That Never End After Loss. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I see that you have the bear on your lap,
Yes,
which I love.
I do.
And there's a couple of bears right here, and Carrie actually made a bear for me. My brother died at 17, and he is right over here. The bear is right here, and it has a little New York Jets outfit on because it was my brother's sweater. So you're doing amazing things, and we'll talk about that today on the show. And joining virtually from South Carolina is Dave Turner. Dave is a retired firefighter. Dave joined the department in 1993. Dave lost 15 of his FDNY brothers in the 9/11 attacks. His firehouse, which is located in Midtown Manhattan, was the only one to have an entire shift killed on 9/11. Those 15 firefighters were among the first to respond to the World Trade Center attacks. So welcome to our show, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
So Dave, I would like to start with you today because we are going to talk about men in grief, brotherhood, and connection. And can you take us back to 20 years ago and what you've been through? I mean, you were in the firehouse on 48th, and I know that you weren't working that day, but every single person that was on that shift died. And these were your FDNY brothers.
Yes, I got off the day before on Monday, and a lot of those guys that were working that Tuesday morning, they came in for their 24-hour shift on Monday, so I saw a lot of them when they relieved some of the other guys.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, sometimes you get survivor's guilt just for that reason alone. Like, why wasn't I working that day?
Mm-hmm.
Dave, you were outside the city, like you weren't really close by to come back when you got the call that something had happened, right?
Yeah, well, what happened was I was home. I lived about 45 minutes north, and we saw on the news what was happening, and as soon as it happened, I kind of knew how bad it was, and I remember arguing with my wife about that I had to go in, and then I basically said I have to go in. I can't wait. So I ended up driving in.
You couldn't get in all the way though, right?
I knew it was going to be crazy getting out or getting in, and I had a friend that owned a police equipment store halfway on the route to the city, and I actually stopped in there to ask him if I could borrow a police light for my car. And then I ended up meeting up with another fireman, and we put the police light on the car, and we ended up getting into Manhattan. And he worked at a firehouse on 125th Street, and we went to his firehouse first because mine was down on 48th Street, and he let me take his car. I didn't even know this guy.
Wow.
And he said, "Take my car to your firehouse," and then I took it.
And
But, yeah.
wasn't it that you were gone for like 4 days, right, from home? Like, and there was no cell service or anything.
Yeah, it was, 4 or 5, I don't even remember. It was, it seems like forever, but there was the cell service was down. It was hard to get in contact. It was, even with the payphones, you couldn't even get out with the payphones. So, but yeah, I was down there for 4 or 5 days.
I mean, Dave, I can't imagine going into the city, like Carrie was saying, going to 48th Street and waiting for your unit to come back, waiting for your 15 firefighter brothers to return, and they never did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that was like probably the first thing that I remember, vividly, is walking in the firehouse, and I knew specifically I wanted to look at the blackboards on who was working, because every shift you put the names of the guys that are working. And I wanted to know who was specifically working, so I remember looking at the names and then saying, okay, yep, I saw him yesterday, but I knew they weren't coming back before I was coming down.
Wow. You had a feeling.
Well, yeah, I just knew that they weren't, at that point when I have no indication that there's anything. I knew there was, how bad it was, but I said, they could be okay. But I knew they weren't going to be coming back before I got down to the site.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And weren't they in the lobby of the Marriott? Is that right?
The engine company was in the Marriott, and the ladder company was in the lobby of the towers, and they were getting people out of the elevator, and the engine company was in the Marriott, checking the floors, making sure everybody was gotten out.
Wow.
So, given that you've been through this horrific loss of not one, but 15 people, one is hard enough. How have you done this? How have you survived this? How have you stayed in the fight? You didn't retire after that, right? You stayed as a firefighter? Yeah,
I stayed in that firehouse till 2007, and I got promoted to lieutenant, and then they sent me to the Bronx. But I ended up staying there, another 6 years. Was it helpful to be in that same firehouse for 6 years and be around other people that knew the guys that had died? It's very tough. I know there's a few guys that transferred out. I really thought about it, because I didn't know which way to go, because I knew it was just going to be a shrine for years to come. It was just, every day was like Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. But looking back, it was, probably the best choice I made. And, it was one of those things where that was probably one of the reasons too, because, anyone that was still there, they got it. They knew, I still could lean on them. They could lean on me. We were basically each other's brother. So what has helped you? What helps guys? Because guys grieve oftentimes different than women. Mm-hmm. For me, it was, whether or not it's right, I always kept things in. So I always bottled up, of course, I didn't just keep it to myself. I went and I did counseling over time. I have a lot of faith in God. He's helped me a lot. Mm-hmm. And, talking to the people that you work with, that was, comforting too, because, we knew each other would get it. No matter what we said, we'd understand it. It wouldn't be something out of left field. And then you always have the outside factors, like you might look at something, or, like even the Carrie bear, you'd see that, give a smile on your face. Carrie, how did you and Dave meet?
So in the fall, when it happened, September 11th, about a few weeks after that, the Caring Connections at the University of Utah through the College of Nursing called me and said, we'd like to, have a meeting, and we'd like to make a bear for every firefighter. And I make bereavement bears for families all across the country who have lost someone, and they send in their articles of clothing, and we turn it into a bear so they can have something to hold on to. Well, this one, there was no way to get all their shirts, and it was really a tender time and really fresh. And I kind of at first said, there's no way, we can't do it. We can't make over 400 bears for all these families by Christmas. That's what the goal was. Wow. Is by Christmas. Yeah. And then I decided, no, we can do this. And we wanted it to make a difference. And it was something from the heart and something, we could make. And so we contacted Dave Turner, and I don't know how we got your number, Dave, but I'm sure glad we did. And he said, yeah, no, I can get you patches, because we wanted an official patch, on each of the bears, mm-hmm. and put individual names on the back, embroider every person's name and their ladder and their their engine or their battalion. So that made it personal for the families. It wasn't just a bear.
Yeah.
And so Dave gave us all that information, and then he, we just kept in touch, and we were going to mail everything, except for that we just really wanted to meet some of the families. And Dave explained that they didn't just live around the corner. They lived far away, and they had to come in. And he said, there's a possibility of you coming in for the Firehouse holiday party in December 15th, 2001.
Wow. So just several months after September 11th.
Yeah, just a few months after. And we had hundreds of people helping to sew, helping to stuff. I was very particular. I wanted them to look exactly like they were supposed to look like. So even my young sons were unstuffing bears that were done wrong or something. And anyway, we were able to connect, and Dave said, come on out. So 3 other wonderful ladies that were on the board of Caring Connections and myself were able to go out, and Dave introduced us to these families and let us hug them and give them bears and give them a little bit of hope.
Yeah, that's a powerful story.
It was incredible. It changed me.
I remember when you just brought it up when you mentioned about making the bears originally, and then you were asking me, could I get shirts or any type of clothing? But I remember I probably said not a chance because I knew that was going to be an impossible task.
I'm sure. Well, and how would you keep them all straight, like who into who, and over, with the Port Authority and the police officer bears, we just had to make sure.
But
and,
we came out perfect.
You're so sweet.
I love that you both collaborated together to make this happen.
It was huge.
And to bring hope at a time that was really hopeless. To bring something positive into people's lives.
Something to hold on to.
Something
they
to
could
hold
have.
on to.
I remember Captain David Woolley's wife said, now I have someone to sleep with at night.
Wow.
And I was like, that's so touching. It was so sweet. And we would just hug these amazing women and their families, and they just rally around us. And we were the ones crying, and they were like hugging us. And it was an incredible, I will never, ever forget it. It was amazing. Amazing.
It sounds really, really incredible. And like you said, now they had something to hold on to.
Yeah.
So, Dave, we are approaching the 20th anniversary. What has that been like for you?
It's been difficult, but I always look at myself like I lost friends, and Denise and Donna and all the other ones. They lost family members, loved ones, husbands, fathers. So I kind of put myself in the back seat a little bit. But it's tough. The biggest thing is I can't believe it's 20 years. And it's weird because you always say never forget, and it did slack off, and now there's like a little surge now because a lot of news coverage and stuff for the 20th year. But it's bittersweet. Like it's great that there's stuff like this going on. You keeping everybody knowledgeable that wasn't around. Because I know people that, God, they were just starting the academy in the police department when 9/11 happened, and they're retiring this year.
Wow.
So it's that's how you put that in perspective. Like somebody could have just started their career and ended it within this time frame. But it's tough. I get through it by going up there, seeing the guys again, reminiscing. We have our service. We go to St. Patrick's Cathedral for a mass, and then we just hug each other.
Yeah, that's powerful.
You celebrate those men, and you honor them all the time. From everything I've seen, it's incredible. I don't know. It's an amazing time. Dave sent me a picture. Actually, I saw a picture that you posted, Dave, of the fire truck going in toward the towers. And I remember when you posted that, you said no one had ever seen it. It was something. Yeah, you tell the story.
Yeah, it was probably, and it's kind of good that it happened the way it happened because, it was like it was for the families. And then, so what happened was, there's a picture of Engine 54 going down the West Side Highway, and you know the guys that are in the rig, and then in the foreground you could see the towers, both of them burning.
Wow.
So that was like the last ride. But what happened was, that picture didn't come into existence until 5 years later. 5 years after 9/11, I had the house watch, which is the room where you take the fire calls when they come in. And a guy knocked on the door, and I answered the door, and he handed me a paper bag and said, I took this picture, and I've had it for 5 years, and I've never sold it. And I just want to give it to you. And he handed it to me.
Wow. That gives me chills, Dave, I have to tell you. It really does.
It's their last ride, and they're riding toward danger to help people.
Yeah.
Right. And having no idea that they would never return.
But
So what I want to see, yeah, okay, Carrie's got her book here.
It's just a
So tell me more about what inspired you to write Heroes of 9/11. As we're talking about the story, you're picking up the book. So did it have
Yeah.
something to do with what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, because the cover, thank you, Dave. I asked him if it would be all right if we had it illustrated for the cover of the book. And there you see the illustration of the picture that was taken of Engine 54 going toward the towers, and a little bit of the bear in the book. But it really is just to honor all those firefighters that went in.
The heroes of 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, they headed into the danger that was so imminent. They had no idea how many people they would help and how many people that they would like let live because they were going into that danger.
So a lot of people survived that day because of the heroic efforts of these 15 men.
Of huge amounts of people that survived. Anyway, this book is just a tribute to them, and it talks a little bit about the bears, and just at the end, you know, just a little bit about the small little part that we were able to do to comfort them, their families, afterwards. But anyway, I was just grateful that Dave allowed me to use that picture for that cover, because it just means so much. That was their last ride, their last time.
And I thought it was incredible that this guy, who was just an ordinary citizen living in Manhattan, you know, he took that picture, had it developed. He probably could have sold that for
Absolutely.
a amount of money to one of the news tabloids, you know, to put it on the front page of the paper, but he kept it for 5 years. Because there was pictures like that in the paper, you know, days and weeks after 9/11, but that was never shown at all to anyone until 2006, I think it was.
That's incredible. That's an
Yeah.
incredible story.
It's a snapshot in time that you would never have thought would mean so much.
Exactly. Exactly. And it represented so much about that day.
Yeah.
And
They
so,
were going toward it.
so Carrie, where can people get your book?
It'll be available on my website for sure, and probably on Amazon.
And what is your website?
CarrieBears.com.
CarrieBears.com. And if anybody out there wants a bear, can you hand me mine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please, like you're hearing with Dave and Carrie, these bears are amazing. And my brother died at 17, my brother and cousin, in a car accident. And this bear was my brother's New York Jets sweater that he wore. And Dave's got his bear. So let's see your bear too, Dave.
There you are.
These bears mean a lot, right?
Yeah, we put in honor of your
in
fallen
loving-
brothers.
In loving memory of your fallen brothers, Dave Turner. Wow. Engine 54, September 11th, 2001.
20 years old, still like brand new.
That's amazing, Dave. So Dave, for all the guys out there that are grieving right now, that have had a loss of a friend, of a coworker, of their chosen family, what would you tell these guys that don't know how they're going to make it?
You got to tell them you're not alone, and you definitely can't handle alone. And it doesn't matter who you go to. You can just go to one person. You can go to a priest. You could pray by yourself. That still counts. You could reach out for help. But you got to realize that every day the sun will shine. And it's a tough ride, but you can get through it. But you definitely have to reach out. There's plenty of avenues to go. Because I was never a counselor type person, but I did it. It was good and it was bad, but there's it all depends. There's so many avenues. You got, like I said, you got the faith. You could have friends to reach out to, but you definitely need a helping hand at some point.
I like all the avenues that you're talking about. Faith, I think is important. Like you said, faith, friends, and a therapist or a counselor if it's a good fit. Like you're saying, there's good ones, there's bad ones. Fit is important. If you're with someone you don't like, you go to the next person. Any of those things, like you're saying. And it sounds like just being of service because, Dave, you've always been of service. And what you did with Carrie collaborating was another way for you to kind of be of service.
And a way for me to be a little bit a part of it. And it like I said before, it changed me to see and meet these families. I mean, I'm forever friends with all of you. And that makes my life better. And hopefully, just a little bit. I just love that you still have your bear. The ladies still have their bears. And to me, it made a little bit of a difference. And that is huge for me.
Yeah. And they'll have them forever.
Yeah.
So Dave, what would you want people to know about September 11th and your grief journey and the grief journey of a lot of people that have had people die on September 11th? 20 years later, is there anything you'd want people to know?
To know that even today that they're still heroes because a lot of what happened on that day carved what this world is today, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, but never forget. And that's the biggest thing because, that day and those weeks where people had the flags out lining the streets and the highways as we drove down, like that was America, and we can't forget what that was like. So once people start forgetting, that's where things change.
The flags and all those things were part of America, and it sounds like you just felt like everybody came together to grieve together, to support each other together, to be kind together, and to heal together.
Absolutely, without a doubt. It definitely created a bond in the worst of circumstances, but sometimes it takes that to bring out the best in people. But
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a day that should be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
There was too many heroes on that day, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
I just remember that you could not purchase a flag. Like, they were out of stock everywhere. When we walked into the firehouse, one of the families, the Tippings family, I believe, was all in flag sweaters. And it was a heroic moment to be an American and to, pay tribute and honor these men who fought for our freedom as well inside the country and outside the country. And I just feel like we have forgotten a little bit. And I just, as a reminder, just want us to remember that we're all united together in this land. And that's what I think needs to be at the forefront.
Mm-hmm. And did you learn anything about yourself over the last 20 years?
Oh, wow. I learned that I guess I'd just say that connections to people mean the most. And that when we grieve together, we do heal together. And we can help each other if we just open our hearts to do that. But I think sometimes we're afraid to do that. I was afraid to make bears, but it has changed my whole life. Every bear I've made has made a difference in my life. But these ones are absolutely incredibly special to me. And these people are amazing and incredible to me.
Well, and you've stayed connected to Dave. You've stayed connected to some of the people in the firehouse over the last 20 years, which is pretty remarkable.
It's a part of my heart forever. And these people are amazing people. And they've gone through so much in different levels of grief. And just to be a part of their lives a little bit has changed my life forever.
And what about you, Dave? What have you learned about yourself over the last 20 years?
That I'm not Superman. That I can't do it all, and sometimes I have to take a bow and sometimes take a break, and but it's but what, I don't like I don't dwell on negative stuff, but what I do see is I see a lot of good stuff. I see when I stop by the firehouse, when I'm up there, you see new guys, and the guys that have been there, they always tell the new guys about what this firehouse was about, the connection, the bond, who those guys were that you see on the wall, the 15 pictures. They make sure that they know who they are and who they were.
Dave, I love that the 15 guys, their pictures are not only inside, but they're outside. So that when we walk past as civilians on 48th Street, we can see them. And I did walk past this morning and paid tribute and remembrance. And you honor them in so many ways. And I love your tattoo. Your tattoo is really powerful. You've got the initials of everyone that died on it.
There was a few of us that got it, and I got that in the spring of 2002.
Wow.
But it's an honor. It's an honor to have it. It's that's one way for me to, I'll never forget. But to me, I always got those guys on my side now. It's like people comment on it, but at some point every day, it's always a reminder of the sacrifice and what happened.
Well, Dave, you are doing so much to keep their memories alive through the stories that you're telling, through the work that you're doing, and I appreciate your heart. It's sometimes hard, you're a firefighter. It's hard to be vulnerable and you're someone that runs into the fire and helps people. So receiving help, I know, isn't always the easiest, and I appreciate you being on today and being so real and open about your own journey, because losing your 15 brothers was profoundly impactful and has changed you. And I know knowing them changed you for the good.
Yes.
We are poor for having lost them, but we are so much richer for ever having known them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Well
thank
said.
you, Dave. And thank you for your service. And Carrie, thank you.
Thank you.
For being here, and thank you for all you did with these bears to help heal the city and the country.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley at opentohope.com. You can see more of these shows if you want there. Dave and Carrie have been on other shows with me. And if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. And God bless.